Hey everybody, so it's that time. It's time for me to wrap up my February reading. I have to tell you that I had a fantastic reading month in February. So many amazing books. And one book that I cannot get out of my head. One book that may wind up being my favorite read of the year. Is it too early to say that? You better come along and see what I have to tell you about. Let's get started. Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you doing today? As always, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, I hope you're safe, and of course, I hope you're reading an amazing book or two or three or four. I have to say it is chilly in Northern California. Like the high today is 54, which for me is very, very cold. Walking the dogs has been quite an adventure when we're all cold and shivering. We had some rain, but all of that is actually good because that means we're getting great and fantastic reading weather. And February was a fantastic reading month. All these books that I'm going to talk to you about today, I really do believe that you are going to want to read. So get out that paper, that pencil, that Goodreads, however you keep track of your TBR. If you are so able, please order these books or pre-order from your local independent bookstore. Or if you're a library user, make sure they get you a copy as soon as possible so you can get on the list and get these books in your hands as soon as possible. So normally I do the books in the order that I read them throughout the month. That's my MO. But today I want to definitely talk about the book that I cannot get out of my head first, and the one that I just really think is super duper special. All of these books were fantastic, but this one just really spoke to me. And that's What We Do in the Dark by Michelle Hart. This comes out on May 3rd from Riverhead. Now, I was excited when this book came in the mail. I thought it was going to be very good, but I did not know how quickly it would just pull me into the story. I sat down on a Saturday morning. It was time to pick a new book, and I read it that Saturday. I started in the morning. Next thing I knew, I was 70 pages in, and the only reason I stopped reading was, life got in the way of finishing this fantastic book. So this is the story of Mallory. She is like a freshman in college, and she has just suffered an immense loss. Her mother has just passed away, and she's still dealing with that loss of her mother. And she goes to college, and she winds up becoming infatuated with this older professor, this older woman that she initially sees at the gym and sort of institutes a way for her to make contact. And their relationship turns into an affair. The woman is married. Her husband is away for a semester teaching in another school. And their relationship becomes sort of a center pinnacle piece of how Mallory is going to inform who she becomes as a person. Her obsession with this woman, her inability to sort of see anything but how she wants to be this woman and wants everything in her life to sort of follow that, but she doesn't recognize any of the trouble that comes with this love affair and or this infatuation. And as the book goes on, Mallory gets older, we come to see how this relationship has really affected and informed her interactions like thereafter with people, with friends, with other women, and with herself and what she wants to do and how she wants to sort of develop her sense of being, right? The writing is just so good. And I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I said, this is like one of those books where there's such a sense of realness, reality. Mallory seems like a person I would know, and she's so well informed that I was really with her every twist and turn. And it's just like, it's so complicated, but so introspective and just so well done. And I adored this book. 5 stars across the board. Absolutely want you all to read it so we can talk about it. So good. That's We Do What We Do in the Dark by Michelle Hart, out from Riverhead Books on May 3rd, 2022. It's not that far away. Before you know it, it will be here. So make sure you get your copy now. Okay, And as I said, that book just blew me away. But all of these books are so good. You should really just order this whole list. I'm just telling you right now. The next book I want to talk about is Louise Erdrich's The Sentence. This was actually my Bicoastal Bibliophile Book Club book. And it is fantastic. This is the story of Tochi. Tochi is, at the start of the book, she commits an act that winds up getting her put in prison. And when she gets out of prison, she winds up getting a job at a bookstore in Minneapolis, very similar to the bookstore that Louise Erdrich herself owns. And a woman, I believe her name is Flora, who is like a common customer, passes away on All Hallows Eve, I believe, and starts to haunt the bookstore. That is sort of what starts this book. Now, this book is extremely now. So this book deals with not only the dynamics of the bookstore, of this ghost, of how all of that means, but we also get COVID in this book. We also get the George Floyd murder and how that affects Minneapolis, affects all of the people in the bookstore. There are so many great characters. This book is about family, both genetic and made family, if that makes sense. It's about culture. It's about how our ancestry informs us. It's about so much. It's a page turner. It is very real when it comes to how COVID sort of stopped life. At times a little bit difficult because, that's not that far in the past for us, right? And the George Floyd murders as well. Just this sense of real reality with that horrible, horrible, horrible thing, murder that occurred, and how the characters react to it just seemed so real and valid and very, very good. It's so, so good. So this is Louise Erdrich, The Sentence. I highly recommend it. It's just a good book. It's so good. Okay. I talked about this book in my Memoir 2022 project, but I just finished reading it. And that's Manifesto on Never Giving Up by Bernardine Evaristo. This is out now from Grove. You can get your hands on it. Now, Bernardine Evaristo. Gosh, I'm tripping over my words today. She wrote Girl, Woman, Other, which is fantastic, won the Booker Award. But this is a memoir about her growing up, how her life in her household, her mother is white British, her dad is Nigerian, talks about how all of that informs. She talks about racism in England. She talks about the book world. She talks about publication. She talks about so much in such a slim book. It's impossible to really encapsulate in a little summary here. I did listen to the audiobook while I read this, and she reads it to you, which is absolutely what you need to happen because she has a fantastic voice. She's had such an interesting life. She's done so many different things. She's so eclectic in her nature, in her views, in her understanding of the world, and there's just a wisdom to her writing that you don't find everywhere. I thought it was brilliant. And that's Manifesto on Never Giving Up by Bernardine Evaristo. And this is out in the US from Grove. I know it's probably out by another publisher in the UK. I apologize. I do not know which one. The next thing I decided to do is I wanted to read some science fiction. I was feeling a little science fiction dystopian. I had just finished watching Station 11, the TV show, which I loved that book. The TV show, I liked it quite a bit. The last episode, that's all I will say. So I decided, you know what? I'll pick up one that I've been hearing a lot about, and that is Goliath by Tochi Onyebuchi. This is out from Tor, and I apologize if I didn't say that first and last name completely accurately. So this is so interesting. So this is a dystopian book where most people have left Earth to live in space stations because the environment on Earth is just been torn apart. There's radiation, lots of things are falling apart. But most of the people who could not leave Earth, as you can imagine, are low income, people who are unable to afford to go there. There's a lot of people of color, just the people who are sort of left behind after sort of the rich, affluent, majority white people leave the planet. But what this book is really about is the regentrification of Earth once those rich white people decide they want to come back and the displacement of the people that stayed behind, told from so many perspectives. You get all sorts of different points of view. There's this like really touching section about this group of people that find these horses and take them into their community, and sort of that connection back to Mother Nature. This book is complicated in its theory. So at times I was a little bit lost as how the narrative was informing what the author wanted me to know. There are so many points of view. And as the book goes on, there's more and more introduced. So I found it a bit complicated, but I found it also extremely relevant and really powerful. He's a fantastic, fantastic writer. It has all sorts of representation in it. And it's a really interesting book. I feel like this would be a fantastic book club book because there's so much to dissect in what he's saying, what he's tackling, and really how the characters respond to all of these situations. Hopefully I did a good enough job selling this book to you. That's Goliath by Tochi Onyebuchi. And this book, I believe, was his first... Was this his first adult novel? Because I know he's written some novellas. But didn't he also maybe write, I can't remember, I'm speaking, but I want to say this is his first full novel. Just don't take my word on it. I think it's in my head, but there you go. Highly recommend it if you like sci-fi. Highly recommend it if you want something to definitely think about. The next book that was sent to me also by Grove is Tides by Sara Freeman. Now this is for people who are fans of, I always say this, Jenny Olaf, those like brief, I also think if you like Sarah Moss, you would really like Tides. They're like these brief vignette type of narratives. This is the story of a young woman. Her name is Mara. She has gone through a horrific loss, which you will find out in the book, so I will not tell you about. So she's left her family. I believe she comes from Canada to the US, and she finds this seaside town. At first, she lives like in one of those hostels, and she's sort of just trying to figure out the world, and then winds up, running really low on money. She's she's sort of dismissed her husband. She is separating herself from her family, and she winds up taking a job in a wine store and having an affair with the person who owns it. That's all I'm going to say, because this book is so interesting in its complexity. Mara is not at all likable most of the book, but you're informed to the reasons why she is the way she is, and it makes her more sympathetic, if that makes sense. It's just a really interesting take on one woman's dealing with grief and what she does with that, and how that doesn't always manifest in a positive or an unaffected manner, and how the character just becomes rather obsessive. It's a complicated book. I'm not sure that it's for everyone, but I definitely thought about it quite a bit once I finished it. I do think that Sara Freeman is a fantastic writer. There's a bit of poetry to her style. I really liked it. I don't know how much else to say about it, but I definitely think it's a book that you will think about if you read it for quite some time. So that's Tides by Sara Freeman. This is out from Grove. You can get your hands on it right now. Okay, only 3 more to tell you about. Okay, the book club book for Spilling Tea. We are still doing Spilling Tea, Ryan and I. We just don't do videos anymore. Turned out to be a lot of work just to run the book club, and to do videos was a bit too much. But this year we are focusing on novellas. And the first novella we read, I know this is considered a novel. It won the Costa First Novel Award, but it is under 200 pages, so we're considering it a novella. And that's Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. This is out here in the US from Black Cat, which I think is also a subsidiary of Grove, if I'm not mistaken. So Grove really informed my February reading. This book is brilliant. So first off, this book is told in the second person, which is unique in and of itself. I have not read many books told in the second person. It took a minute for me to get into it, but it's the story of a young Black man in London and his relationship really with the world, but there's a focus on a relationship with a young woman he meets at the very, very beginning who is actually dating one of his friends. And he is a photographer, she is a dancer. That informs who he is more than who she is. It never really, because it's told in the second person you from his perspective, you are distanced. And I think once you finish the book, you realize why. But this book deals with racism in London. It deals with sort of that fear of, as a black man just walking down the street and what can happen. It deals with loss. And it deals with sort of that fear of telling someone or allowing people in because you are constantly worried that they will disappear. Does that make sense? I thought it was, I cannot even rave enough. It's a first novel, which is brilliant. I can't even imagine what he will be doing in the future. It is so good. The audiobook is also read by him and very, very good. So that's Caleb Azumah Nelson's Open Water, out from Black Cat. Don't trust me. Trust the Costa Book Awards. Definitely, definitely worth reading. May take you a minute. Second person is not something that's easy to get into, but it's definitely worth it. Another book that I was reading for my Queer YA 2022 project was The Music of What Happens by Bill Konigsberg, and this is out from Scholastic. This was just a treat. This is the story of Max and Jordan. Jordan is more of a sort of reclusive young gay boy who is dealing with the fact that his mother has not been able to get over the loss of her husband. His dad passed away, and he is sort of slid into this supportive role that is all encompassing. Him and his mom decide to reboot a food truck that his dad used to run. And when they're out their first day, it's not going well. Enter Max. Max is an openly, well, I don't know. He's out to his friends, his really good friends. He's a gay high school baseball player, very good looking, sort of one of those guys that, you know, gets thought of, oh, everything is going his way. But you learn very quickly that that is not true, that he is much more complex than that. And this book is about the relationship between Jordan and Max and how they learn to share with each other their histories, how the difficult things in their lives that are sort of informing who they are growing up to be. I will say there is a trigger warning for sexual abuse in this book. It's not graphic, but it is part of the narrative. There's, there's that thing where in life sometimes where children have to take care of their parents. And that for Jordan really informs him. And I found that a little bit difficult to read only because it was very real. But at the heart, it's the story of two boys meeting each other and learning to fall in love. And that's not a spoiler. It is charming and lovely and nuanced and beautiful, and I absolutely loved it. So that's The Music of What Happens by Bill Konigsberg, out from Scholastic. I need to get his other books. I definitely feel like I would really like more of his stuff. Okay, last but not least is something a little bit out of left field for me. I don't review much poetry, but Knopf sent me, I have to hold it down here because I don't want YouTube to not like the photo on the front. And that's 100 Lovers, Poems by Richie Hofmann. And this is a collection of queer poetry. It's how do you describe poetry? Here's what I'll say. I read it in pieces. Some of the poems stopped me dead in my tracks. Some of the poems I'm not sure I completely understood, but I absolutely was absorbed into Richie Hofmann's language. They are steamy, they are sensual, they are full of life and full of just beautiful observations about people and humanity. I don't know how to say more than that. I will say that I just loved it. I think about it. I've been keeping it beside my bed, and every once in a while I'll just pick one up right before I go to sleep again and reread a poem. And he just has a way with words and language. So that is 100 Lovers, Poems by Richie Hofmann. This is out now for Knopf. You know, I don't recommend much poetry. So if I'm recommending it, it really stuck with me. And I can't get it out of my head. This was a fantastic reading month for me. All of these books, I'm telling you right now, are 100% worth your time. As always, if you are new to my channel, thank you so much for coming by. I really, really hope you subscribe, hit the bell, do all of that stuff. If you are a return subscriber, I couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much. Today is actually my 5-year YouTube anniversary. So huge thank you to all of you who have been around 5 years. Can you believe it? Yeah, it was fantastic. And I have to say, I encourage you to read globally, shop locally, and until next time, I wish you happy reading. Bye, everyone.